Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. We have a pretty interesting show lined up for you today. Later on, we're going to talk about a incident that occurred in March of 1987 in Kentucky involving a doctor who was retired, who one day was taking a stroll around his farm, his 400-acre property, and he found what he believed were two dead alien creatures, the skeletal remains. This was something that he actually talked with the late investigator Leonard Stringfield about, but we're going to get into that story, and there's a great lesson to be learned in that story. That's the biggest reason why I want to talk about it, in addition to the fascinating nature of the story. And also, we're going to there's an update with regard to the whistleblower Jake Barber. The Pentagon has stated that they are investigating his claims. We're going to talk about that later on. But first, before we get into all those other things, I want to talk about a recent short little video that was sent to me by one of my subscribers. His name is Dustin from Ohio, and this was something that he filmed while he was on a break from work. He was working in Valley City, Ohio. This occurred on August 22nd of 2024. According to Dustin, he was just coming off his 11 p.m. break, so it was about 11 minutes after 11 p.m. when he started recording. The object looks more than a mile away, maybe putting it over the town of Columbia Station. That was a nearby town that he thinks it was hovering over. And he doesn't think it was a helicopter because he couldn't hear any noise, and it was only 5,000 plus feet away, about a mile away where he saw this object. And the way it couldn't have been a plane, and the only thing it could have been if it was prosaic, if it was something like that we normally would see in the skies, he would think it would be a helicopter, but he heard no sound whatsoever. Anyway, I'll just play this video. It's about a minute long. For those who are listening to the show and not watching, basically you could hear the crickets in the background chirping, and you can see in the background this little like orange object moving across the sky, and that's all and you hear the crickets. Anyway, here we go. Well, now I have the video pulled up on my screen here. We'll check it out again. Let me just press play here. You can see it in the background there. I don't know. I don't know. Would we hear it if it's a helicopter? If it's that close? If it's about a mile away? I guess it depends on the kind of helicopter. I would think you would have to hear it, though, if it's only a mile away. This video, you could see it. This object, whatever it was pretty light, pretty bright. He said it was blinking. However, he couldn't hear. I guess him and whoever else was there could not hear any other noises. So it's just unclear what this is. Could it be a UFO, an NHI manufactured craft? I guess it could be, but we really just don't know. He thought it was weird, and Dustin has had some other strange things occur to him as well, in addition to this. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I have no clue, but there's no sound, as you could see, as the object disappears behind a tree. So it could be, but it's unclear. It could be something extraordinary, but we just don't know. But anyway, I want to say thanks a lot, Dustin, for submitting that. It's always nice to see footage like this and try to make heads or tails of it. I don't know what to say about it. The fact that there's no sound, it does seem like it was pretty close. You would think if it was a helicopter, you would at least heard something, but you hear nothing except for the crickets, and that's it. And actually, you could hear cars in the background driving by as well. Anyway, so whatever. What do you guys think? What you think it was a helicopter or was it something else? I don't know. Anyway, moving on, I want to talk about this incident that occurred, an alleged apparent crash of something, and it was reported here written for the first time in a report in one of Leonard Stringfield's famous status reports. This is the collection. He had 7 status reports that he released from the late 1970s all the way up until the mid 1990s, right before he died, and he was someone who had connections. He knew people in the military. There was a lot of people who would go show up, call him, contact him, to let him know about what they knew with regard to UFO crash retrievals. And there was a lot of great stories that he had to tell. And one of them was you could find it in his which one was this? This was Crash Retrieval Status Report number 5. Where he talked about this incident, where now the story was originally first discussed on some radio show out of Cincinnati, a talk radio show where a friend of this doctor, this retired doctor who lived in Western Kentucky, talked about this incident. It's unclear based on this report whether this doctor ever appeared on the radio show or if it was just discussed by his friend who was talking during the radio show. The friend's name was Bilbo Shears. And it says here in Stringfield's status report with regard to this case, it says, when informed of this story, I was eventually able to reach the doctor through his friend, Bilbo Shears, who first aired it on his radio talk show in Cincinnati. Since the show having been warned to shut up in no uncertain terms, the doctor nonetheless entrusted me with his name, but would not reveal the location of his farm, nor give me or anyone else his unlisted phone number. He also advised that some of the details he shared with me about the investigation by the Air Force should be kept confidential. And anyway, what happened was he was taking a stroll on his 400-acre farm the one day, and he found some weird things, including a burned-out circle that was about 4 feet in diameter, and near the circle there was 2 skeletons he found. They were humanoid skeletons about 4 feet apart. They didn't have any clothing on, and it says here some of the bones, he said, showed residual ligament with evidence that predators had been at work. As a doctor, he was certain that the bones were not of animal origin, and on closer examination, he was shocked, he said, to find that the structure was bipedal, about 4 feet tall, with a large skull and cat-like jaw, a barrel-like rib cage with long arms, and 3 fingers. So the skeletal remains of these apparent alien creatures, they only had 3 digits on each of their hands. I wonder if they were related to the thing that was in my bedroom back in 1977. I wonder if they're from the same molded from the same cloth. You have to wonder. And the doctor was absolutely certain that these things weren't human. And then his next move was to contact the sheriff, and the sheriff in turn contacted the Air Force. Now, it doesn't say what happened after he contacted the sheriff. I would imagine, though, that the sheriff, before contacting the Air Force, actually went to the farm and looked at the remains himself, and then contacted the Air Force. That would be what I would think would have had to have happened. No question. I mean, I don't think that the sheriff would have got a phone call like this from somebody stating that they found the skeletal remains of what looks like alien creatures on his farm, and then just hang up the phone and directly call up the Air Force. No, I think that the sheriff would have gotten his car, drove to the farm, looked at the remains for himself, and then contacted the Air Force. So that was a mistake, and we'll talk about that later. That was a mistake by this doctor. He probably didn't know any better, though. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people would know better. Anyway, it says here, the next morning at sunrise, according to this doctor, he was surprised to see 3 helicopters land in a clearing, and many people, some in uniform and some not, being deployed over a wide area. And then some colonel greeted him, and the colonel, by the way, was somebody that Stringfield knew of. He knew this person. The name was known to Stringfield, so that lends this some credibility, this story that he was being told, because the colonel that he said approached him, the doctor, this retired doctor, told Stringfield the name of this colonel, and Stringfield's, oh, look, that guy's a real guy. I know who you're talking about. So that, to me, gives this an air of credibility. And anyway, this colonel cordially introduced himself and stated his mission: remove the bones and undersoil, test and remove the burned circular soil, and comb the area for any other evidence. And then later in that day, they filled in the hole with fresh soil that they dug up. And the doctor was also told that the circle had been baked at 3,000 degrees. And the doctor also indicated that he believed that the skeletal remains, they had to be exposed there for less than 100 days. So they're probably just laying, whatever happened within a 100-day period. They're out there for a while, but it had to be somewhere under less than 100 days to be in that condition, according to this doctor. And this doctor also told Stringfield that they put the fear of God into him, meaning that he was taken to some military base where he was questioned. He was interrogated for a while there. He was also shown photos of other alien corpses. And and Stringfield, of course, was interested in this guy. He wanted to see him again and talk to him more. He suggested that they meet and have a lunch together, but then the guy never called him back, never contacted him again. And this was reported in other books. Other people mentioned it. It was mentioned in this book here by Kevin Randall called "When UFOs Fall from the Sky," as well as also Ryan Wood talks about it in his Magic Eyes Only book about UFO crash retrievals. So it's an interesting story, and there is a great lesson to be learned here with this story, I believe. And well, before we even get into that, I just want to talk about this case itself. I mean, this does have an air of authenticity to it. I mean, usually the people that were contacting Stringfield for the most part were people that had some of these people were insiders, some people were part of the government. He would never reveal the sources. That's a lot of people held that against Stringfield, including people in the UFO field. Thought that that's not going to help. If it's all anonymous, what good does that do? But at the same time, this was the only way to get this kind of information. You had to be anonymous. I mean, this doctor who he talked to, when he did finally get a chance to talk to this guy, he couldn't. The doctor was actually at one of his friend's house and called him from there. And he wouldn't even call him from his own house. He was too afraid. He didn't want to talk about it because obviously he was told not to talk about this. And probably what I would imagine what happened at some point, you would have to think that Stringfield was being watched. At this time, this happened. He was talking to this guy at some point in 1989. Stringfield had been looking into crash retrievals for a long time at this point. You would have to imagine that his phone would have been tapped by the people, by the control group. You would have to think they were probably listening to all the people that were contacting him. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that this doctor who told him this story never contacted him again after that. But I do find that what's interesting about the story is the fact that they did bring this doctor to a military base and interrogate him, and also showed him pictures of other beings, of other alien corpses. I guess once I think what happens here for some of these witnesses that the Air Force ends up shutting up. Is that they bring them in a little bit. They'll show them something. They'll show them other UFO. If they'll show them pictures of real UFOs. Sometimes you hear stories like that. They'll show them pictures of alien creatures, but they'll tell them you can't talk about this in public. The people can't know about this, and they're scared into staying silent. And I think that's what happened here in this case. But this guy apparently didn't want to stay silent, and that's why he was telling his friend who operated the radio station, and then agreed to talk to Leonard Stringfield about this. But there's the lesson here to be learned is, and I'm sure that this doctor wasn't someone who was in the UFOs. I mean, you're talking 1987. How many people back then really, were big fans of the UFO narrative? I mean, you would have to think that this guy knew nothing, and his first inclination was, what am I going to do? Okay, there's alien bones in my farm here in the back, laying in the grass here. I guess I better call the sheriff up and see what he says. That's the first thought that probably came to his mind. What else is he gonna do? And of course, the sheriff looks at it. I mean, how's he supposed to handle this? He's looking at this. Well, it's not animal bones. It's not human remains. I mean, this is out of, this is above my pay grade. So I guess I better contact the Air Force. This looks like alien creatures, and you have a doctor here telling me that it's alien creatures because It's nothing that he knows of. So the next move by the sheriff, of course, is going to contact the Air Force. And then the very next day, 3 helicopters show up and dig up the ground where all the soil where the beings were laying. They remove the skeletal remains. They take those. And they also take some of the soil where the burn mark was in the ground, and then fill it all back in again. Of course, that's what's going to happen. If you contact the authorities in that way after you find something like that, of course that's what's going to happen. They're going to cover it up quickly. You can read about all this stuff in the leaked Special Operations Manual for Majestic 12 that was leaked to UFO researcher Don Berliner back in the 1990s. They talk about how the military should handle this. This was apparently a book that was put together back in the 1950s, but I'm sure that they were still operating under some of the same protocols and that were established earlier. Like for instance, one of the things that the military is told to do, that the people that are involved in crash retrievals, they're told that they gotta black out the press and also make sure that any witnesses never talk about this. There's a section here called Discredit Witnesses, and it says, if at all possible, witnesses will be held incommunicado until the extent of their knowledge and involvement can be determined. Witnesses will be discouraged from talking about what they have seen, and intimidation may be necessary to ensure their cooperation. If witnesses have already contacted the press, it will be necessary to discredit their stories. This can be done by the assertion that they have either misinterpreted natural events, are the victims of hysteria or hallucinations, or are the perpetrators of hoaxes. So that's probably what happened to this poor doctor. He went to the law enforcement authorities in his area, and they in turn went to the Air Force, and then the Air Force showed up, took everything off his property, told him he can't talk about this with anyone. They probably intimidated him, like they talk about in this Special Operations Manual, which if you have never read, I really highly recommend that you do. It's very, very interesting. It basically lays out what's supposed to happen when a UFO crashes, or how they're supposed to retrieve it, how they're supposed to package it, where they're supposed to take them, all the different responsibilities for the various teams that will be involved in the retrieval process. I mean, it's just very interesting stuff, and it's never been debunked. In fact, I believe this document is absolutely real. I can't. It would like Ryan Wood actually talked about this. He's a researcher. Him and his father Robert Wood investigated this document, and they came to the conclusion that it would have taken hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million, to create something like this. So like, why would somebody try to hoax something like this? It would be too difficult. But it matches other government documents of this nature, the way was typed and presented, and it just, to me, I think it's real, and I think that this is the kind of things that these are the kind of rules that they follow, that they abide by, and I think that that's probably what happened with this doctor. That's why the lesson to be learned here out of this case is, whatever you do, if you were to find alien remains, do not contact law enforcement. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. Okay, if like say you're walking through the woods, you're taking a stroll through a trail near your house somewhere, right? And you come upon a dead animal, the bones of a bear or something, right? Or a dead dog or whatever, a deer, whatever. You find that you're just going to look at it and you're just going to move on your merry way. You're not going to tell anybody about it. Now, of course, if you're walking through the woods and you came upon the remains of a human being, you're most certainly going to contact the police immediately. But if you're walking through the woods and you come upon the remains of what looks like alien creatures with large heads and only 3 digits on each hand, I mean, okay, what do you do then? Is it a good idea to contact law enforcement then? Being that they're not human and they're not animals, so I mean that the law doesn't really apply here, you would think. I would probably, if it was me, I would make sure I would photograph everything. I would take pictures and film it with my cell phone camera. I'd do everything I could to get to document it that way by taking pictures, video, whatever it took, right? then I would make some contacts, but the people I would contact would probably be the local newspaper and the local TV station or stations. I would actually probably go there. I mean, what this doctor back in 1987 should have did, right? He should have taken a bunch of pictures himself, right? Don't call law enforcement that he was a doctor. He knew for a fact, right? He knew for a fact. He was absolutely certain that these remains were not human, right? So it turned out to be a mistake to contact law enforcement, because then he was just, what happened was he ended up being muzzled. He couldn't talk about it with anybody. And you think about this, what he could have done was take all the pictures. You know, back then, of course, you didn't have cell phones, so you just if you have a camcorder, you take that, you film, even if you don't have one, you find one, you find someone who has one, or you go out and buy one, whatever it takes. You get a video camcorder, you film the skeletal remains with that. Take pictures, all the pictures you possibly can, and then take that stuff to the local newspaper. Show them your credentials. You're a doctor. This is what you found in the property. I'm going to have a press conference on this time at this point later on in the day. You're invited. Then you go to the local TV station or stations. You tell them what you're doing. This is. You're invited if you want to come, and then that's what you do, right? And then this way you bypass everything. You bypass the army coming, or the Air Force showing up and telling you to shut up, and then just taking everything off the property. That's what you could have been avoided if it would have been handled that way. But of course, I'm sure that this doctor didn't know. He didn't understand what was about to happen. But it's hindsight. It's 2020. I understand, right? But if you're out there, and even if you're someone who doesn't really care about this subject, but you came across something like this, if you want the world to know about it, then whatever you do, don't contact the military or law enforcement about it. Contact somebody else, and then contact law enforcement. After everybody else comes and films it and takes pictures of it and then puts it on the 6 o'clock news, then you can contact the law enforcement and say, if you want to. I mean, that's optional. I mean, if you're talking about the remains of dead alien creatures, well, I don't think that falls under the purview of law enforcement. It shouldn't anyway. So I would handle things that way. That's how I would do it. And in this day and age, like I said, I would take all the pictures and video I can with my cell phone camera, and then I would probably contact not only probably first off, I would contact UFO investigators or something like MUFON or somebody, and let them know what's going on, and that I'm going to let them know where the place is, and along with the local news channels at this, and meet me here at this time, and then we'll take it from there. That's probably how I would handle it at this point. Whatever you do, though, do not contact the military, because they're going to cover it up, and then they're going to take you somewhere to some military base and threaten you and harass you and intimidate you and tell you you're not allowed to talk about this with anybody, because that's just the way it is. And if you do, then this and this might happen to you. That's what would happen if you take that route. If you go the law enforcement / military route, because that's what's going to happen. Law enforcement, if you contact law enforcement with something like this, they're not going to know what to do. So they're going to contact the military, because that's the only thing that's going to come to their mind. And then the next thing you know, it will be a snowball effect, and you're going to get rolled over. That's what would happen. That's why you would be better off contacting news stations, news outlets, UFO researchers. Let them all know about it beforehand. Let them all come and see it with their own eyes beforehand. Have their experts come in to test the skeletal remains to show that the DNA doesn't match human DNA, and so on and so forth, right? Do things like that first, and then maybe, if you need to, I don't see why you would. Why would anybody need to contact law enforcement if you're talking about something that's not human? If it's not a dead human, then why would they care? They're not. It's not going to fall under their jurisdiction. It would be out of their purview. So to avoid all of that, I would recommend do not contact them. Whatever you do, don't contact them. Contact UFO people who are researchers, things like that, and the local news channels, local newspaper, and then see what happens that way. You're better off. Otherwise, you're going to be threatened and intimidated and told to shut up or else. So that's why. I think it's important to talk about this. I mean, with the chances of something like this happening to somebody, what are the chances you're going to come across skeletal remains of alien creatures? It's probably, 1 in a trillion, or 1 in a Googleplex, right? It's probably hardly ever the chances of it are slim and none, basically. So, yeah, I would. But at the same time, if it does happen, right, you know what to do now. You know what to do. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about what's going on here with Jake Barber. Now, Ross Coulthart and News Nation they recently had an article a couple of days ago, and the headline reads here: UFO whistleblower claims about non-human aircrafts investigated by the Pentagon. And the article reads: the Defense Department confirms that it is investigating claims made by government contractor Jake Barber on News Nation that he helped the military retrieve UFO technology. Ross Coulthart, who interviewed Barber at length about his background and experiences, says the development could lead to a greater understanding of UFOs or UAP. That's if the government is forthcoming with its findings, he added. Yes, that is the big question, if the government is forthcoming with its findings. Here's what Coulthart went on to say. He also said it's an incremental step forward. That's what he said on Sunday. John T. Kozlowski, who's the director of the Department of Defense's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, which I believe is completely useless at this point, has indicated his office is talking with whistleblowers like Barber while cautioning he's limited in what he can say publicly. So he's getting talked. ARROW, which is basically a division of the Pentagon, is interviewing Barber, looking into these claims. But what is this going to do for anybody? What do you think is going to happen at the end of this investigation, if anything? I think we already know what the answer is. I mean, why even? Again, this is like a story that says Al Capone is investigating whether his business empire is wrought with fraud. I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, isn't it? I mean, in this, like we talked about this so many times before. Okay, Arrow is investigating claims made by Jake Barber. Jake Barber, who said he transported this egg-shaped craft via helicopter for the government, basically a crash retrieval of a non-human intelligent manufactured craft. He transported it, this egg-shaped object. We talked about this story before, and now Arrow is investigating to see whether it's true or not. It's basically the Pentagon is investigating itself to see if it's true or not. And when this happens, what always happens, right, is that in the end you get nothing. You get nothing. This is basically a non-story. This story doesn't even count in my book. It means absolutely nothing. All it means is that we're being led around. They're just basically leading people around in a circle with no. That's all it is. You're going in circles. You're just going around in a circle. You're not going to ever get some sort of a conclusion to this. They're not going to tell you the truth about it ever. They're not interested in it. They've resorted now in the last couple of years. You think about some of the things that the former director of Arrow, the way he carried himself, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I mean, it's bald-faced lying. That's what it is. It's boiled down to that. So they're investigating whether Barber's claims are real or not. They're going to tell us what they come up with at the end. No, it's never going to happen. It's so absurd. This is to me is a non-story. This story means nothing. Well, here's another article here. This was published just yesterday in the Daily Mail. It says here, the Pentagon has revealed that it is now investigating claims made by a government contractor that he retrieved a crashed egg-shaped UFO. Jake Barber came out as a whistleblower in January, saying he piloted helicopters during secret missions to collect alien technology. Speaking to News Nation, Barber said he flew 150 feet above an egg-shaped object with no engine or thermal signatures. I saw an egg, a white egg, the pilot explained. It's inconsistent with anything I'd ever seen before, Barber said in January. Now, the United States Department of Defense has confirmed it is looking into the case. It's the latest report of unidentified anomalous phenomena that the Pentagon admits they're actively investigating, adding this case to 21 others. Those 21 UAP investigations were part of a stunning report which revealed that the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office received 757 cases of UAP encounters from United States authorities, mainly between May 1st, 2023 and June 1st, 2024. That bombshell total included 272 incidents which occurred prior to 2023 but had never been reported publicly. But, I just don't see anything coming out of this. I really, really don't. I don't even know what is the. I mean, again, we've heard this before. Arrow has been doing this. They've been doing this with these other cases. It's the same thing. They're not going to tell you anything in the end. They're never going to reveal the truth about it. It's just leading everyone around by the nostrils in a circle. That's what it is. Basically, leading the public, the American public and press around in a circle without ever answering the question, never providing the full truth about this phenomenon ever. So, and even Kozlowski says he has limited power when it comes to revealing government secrets, according to this article. Coulthard actually told News Nation the Pentagon dictates what he, Kozlowski, is allowed to reveal and what he's allowed to say publicly, and there isn't a very proud history of the Pentagon wanting to be very forthcoming. It's so true. They've never been forthcoming about this. They just don't want to. They don't want to tell the public the truth about this. They've been lying too long, and for how many, who knows all the reasons, but we know that they're lying about it. That's all we can say for sure. But I don't see what the point of this information. This does nothing. Of course, they'll say that they're investigating it, but it's, again, you're basically having the people who are being charged with covering something up about this, right, doing their own investigation into it, and so it just doesn't make any sense. It never did to me. That's one of the reasons Arrow is just so absolutely useless. You needed some independent kind of group. You need to give some independent organization within the government the power to do a real investigation. That's never going to happen because they want to keep it this way. They want to keep things status quo. They don't want to rock the apple cart here. They just want to keep on moving forward, keeping the public in the dark about this while they investigate all of the incredible attributes to the recovered craft that they have brought, that they've been secretly reverse engineering for all these decades. They want to keep all that to themselves. They don't want to, they don't want to rock the boat, and so we're not going to get anything out of this. This is absolutely, totally useless. Totally, the investigation. Don't count on receiving any information that's relevant in any way, shape, or form, because it's not going to happen. In the end, you'll get nothing. You'll get absolutely nothing from the Pentagon. Yeah, we looked into it. Barber, maybe he was on drugs that day, or yeah, we looked into it. There was nothing. Yeah, we looked into it, and I think this Barber just made it up. That's what I think. You'll get something like that in the end. You'll just get lies about these the crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to tell you about it. That's for other people. That's for people who are highly, rich people, people who are highly placed, people who have connections and clout, and people who believe they're better than the rest of us. That's the only people that get to know about this in the government. The rest of us, we're all just peons to them, and we have no right to know. Only they get to know, not you or me. They only get to know, not you. You're too stupid. We're smart. You're stupid. Basically, that's what they're telling you. That's how I see it anyway. Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.